So, we're back here on the Red Couch in person. This is the first in-person Red Couch interview that we're having in a little while, and this is all due to the COVID restrictions and the COVID realities. And my very special guest today on the Red Couch is none other than the Reverend Guy Hewitt. You have certainly, Guy, fired up the local political scene by your entry into the political fray. So, well, first of all, welcome to the Red Couch and to us here at Capital Media.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah. I'm looking forward to being here with you this morning.
Now, you were Barbados' High Commissioner to London.
Correct.
Under the last administration. After the change of government in 2018, you took a posting in your ministry overseas, yeah?
Yes, yeah. I mean, after I ended my tour in London, I came back here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find anything, any work here. So I good fortune led me to Florida, where the diocese there has offered me a church, and it has been wonderful being able to take, I think, a step back to kind of reflect, rejuvenate, and I guess in a sense prepare myself for what I'm doing currently.
So let me ask the question. One of the first questions I want to ask is, where is your heart? Is your heart in the ministry? Is your heart in the politics? Or can you do both? Is it?
I tell people I have three passions in life. My service to my God, service to friends and family, and to country. And so in a sense, the God and country do come together. And I've never expected to find myself directly involved in the political arena. But I realized that in true life, we get callings, and I feel very much that I've been called to stand up and step forward and to ensure that the democratic traditions that we've had in Barbados and been so robust continue. And this is really where I'm at. And I feel that the principles that you get from a life of faith offer a strong foundation for public service, because issues of integrity, of commitment to others, of commitment to freedom and justice and equality, all of these things are consistent between our faith and between what we should be looking for in the public domain.
So you don't see necessarily a conflict between serving in the church and serving?
No, not at all. What I did do or have done is, where I am involved politically directly, I will then step back from direct liturgical roles. So I've said to people, while I'm here, while I am working with my parish abroad, I am not doing anything in Barbados, because I feel that we must avoid confusing people between the role of a minister of God and a minister of the state.
Fair enough. So some people would say, you've come in charging on your white horse as a gallant savior for the party, and you want to start at the top. And then, the typical Bajan thing is only grave diggers start at the top. Now, how do you respond to the charge that you are seeking to start at the top rather than to build from the ground up?
In a sense, the party doesn't have time. Since 2018, with the catastrophic defeat at the polls, we have seen efforts, and I have commended the current president for trying to move the party forward. But we have so much more work to do, and therefore the time we can't afford to wait to the right time to make the right move. We have to move boldly now. And I can say to people honestly that if you look at the last 3 months, there has been more focus, energy coming out of the Democratic Party, more attention being paid on it as the alternative to the government than hitherto in the last 3 years. And so it has reassured me that this was the right thing to do.
Now, let me take you back. You mentioned 2018 and the catastrophic defeat of the Democratic Labour Party. To what would you attribute that resounding defeat?
To a large extent, there was a serious challenge in communications. I mean, we had a difficult a difficult economy, and people didn't necessarily feel that or understand what the government was trying to do, what it was trying to achieve. And you saw in 2018, very much on the other side with the current administration, a very strong communications thrust on social media, in terms of the leadership, engaging people on the ground, very much a strong visibility, communicating a vision and policies. All of that was very effective by the current administration. I dare say that there were a lot of lessons to be learned by the Democratic Party in terms of how it approached that election. People felt very much that the party was disconnected from them. And so they made a choice based on where they felt they could find support, where they could find leadership, where they could find direction. But I would say, if you are listening now to what's happening on the ground, people are appreciating that you need to have balance. There is a need in our democracy for two viable and robust parties, and we are seeing, to the extent that there is not a strong opposition, that the issues of accountability and transparency have again emerged, as was happening prior to 2018.
How do you respond to the assertion by some that 2018 was a rejection of a government that was seen to be incompetent, in some cases allegations of corruption, and the perception that some of the people associated with that perception are going to be part of what is being presented by the Democratic Labour Party today? How would you respond to someone who says that?
In a sense, this is democracy, and you have to be able to abide by the will of the people. And if they're at the constituency level, people have a choice or a desire for a specific representative, we need to give them a chance. However, I've said, in terms of the candidate selection in the Democratic Labour Party, I do have concerns. And my biggest concern is about the absence of females on the tickets, that there are only a few of them in the 21st century. We should be able to find women who are both capable and willing to represent people at the highest level. There will be a need to do some polling to make sure, or to affirm, that the candidates that are out there are the right fit. And I think coming out of that, if we are able to do something empirically, it gives you a sense of, as you are saying, are people still holding to positions they had in 2018, or now 3 years on, are they able to look more critically or be more discerning about, were these people as bad as we were presented them to be, compared to what we are dealing with now? And so we give everybody the right to be a representative and for people to choose their representatives, but we need to do some empirical analysis of, are there going to be a right fit when we go to a general election?
Let me take you to your own position. You've left the, I would imagine, relative comfort or safety, if you would, of a secure position serving the Lord in Florida, and you're taking what could be perceived as a major risk in giving that up and coming back to Barbados and jumping into the political fray. What is it that Guy Hewitt brings and offers that is going to be different for the people of Barbados? Why should they choose you?
Well, and you spoke to, in a sense, part of it. We have got to take bold steps as a nation. Barbados has done much in a short period of time as an independent country, but we have, to a large extent, maintained, if you look at our education, our social services, our economic policies, much of what we are still doing now, we've been doing for the last 50 years. You know, the O-levels became CXEs, you know, the tourism and the financial services that started in the 60s and 70s and 80s are still dominant. We have not changed that much. The world has changed considerably. And we need now to create new opportunities, looking at new spaces, to say to our young people, there is hope for you. For the first time, I am seeing young, qualified Barbadians migrate, going to Canada, saying they're looking for opportunities. Before, people did that usually for professional development or migrating with families. Now you're getting young people who are feeling that Barbados does not offer them the future that they want for themselves or their children.
Even after they have gone to university, gotten that first
Exactly.
degree, or in some cases a second degree.
And that's the thing. So once upon a time, when you said if you went to university, you got a degree, in a sense, life, or you could predict how your life is going to go. Young people don't have the wherewithal to get mortgages, to keep a family going, to pay their way in Barbados, because as you know, it is so phenomenally expensive here. So we have got to create those opportunities to say to our young people, to say to our professionals, there is space being created for y'all to succeed for the future. And it's going to have to be bold, because what is now on offer, we know the sectors are not creating the levels of employment, not creating the economic opportunities for people to just make it. We have to do more than just talk. We have got to create spaces in the economy for young people to come in. We have, unfortunately, during difficult times, you hear from one administration to the other, we need to restructure the economy. We've been saying this probably for 2-3 decades, but nobody ever does it. At the end of the day, we go back into our comfort zones of tourism, international business and financial services, and those are very important sectors. But the reality of it is that we have to create new spaces, and we talk about creating spaces or entrepreneurship, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum. You've got to have an enabling environment. I mean, we regrettably are one of the worst rated jurisdictions in the Caribbean and abroad, globally, in terms of doing business. You can't get things done here. And so whether it is an overseas investor or a young Barbadian, there is that stress of just trying to get business done in Barbados.
So my first question to you is what do we do about, how do we change that, one? And two, my second question, we hear exactly what you've said, that we need to diversify the economy. We need to not be solely dependent on tourism and the international business sector, the traditional planks of the economy. My question is, what is the it that we need to translate into? I hear this in very general terms, but I'm not hearing any specifics as to what it is that we are supposed to go into that we're not into.
Well, one of the areas which I maintain, and I'll deal with the issue of diversification and come back to service. One of the things I maintain is that even if we look at agriculture, I've got a good friend of mine, his son is a university graduate, and decided to go into farming. And he's working about 15 acres. And he's doing well. He said, it's very intense work. On mornings, you got to get up, you got to get things done. But he's saying financially, it's very rewarding. The challenge he had was, he said, he could not find the financial support to go into farming. You can go to the bank and get a car loan, but you cannot go and say, I want to be a farmer, and people willingly provide resources for you to start. And that's part of the challenge, that young people, whether it's your daughter or a graduate, there are not the resources for startup. There are not the programs, the mentorship programs that easily allow you to say, well, these people have done it. Let us get you from A to B to C. But agriculture is where we must start, because it provides opportunities not just for food self-sufficiency, but the opportunities for niche markets. You see like Foursquare. That is now one of the best spirit producers
6
in
years
the world.
6 years on the trot.
Exactly.
Number one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and now when you look at that, you realize that we don't necessarily need to get partnerships with international companies or let them take us over. We can do it on our own. And I give a big shout out, to Richard Seals, who has been able to do that. And those kind of local visionaries, we need to support them and we need to work with them so that they can explain to others how do we get it done. Because it's a journey that we have to make as a people with the kind of self-assuredness that we would have had in the post-independence, going into the 70s, 80s, 90s, where we understand that we were a people with a place in the world and we could make a contribution. You ask about the civil service, and I want to say, I understand, as you were saying, the challenges sometimes of getting things done because of bureaucracy. But we've got to also understand or look at a prevailing mindset in Barbados. You said the voters out there, I think, are not pleased with the quality of representation they're getting. I would say that if you look at on average, the type of politician that we saw in the House of Assembly in the 70s, the 80s and 90s, it's a different type now. And I don't know that they are as aware of their calling and the vocation of service than those who served us before. Similarly, in the private sector, we saw huge sell-offs of our leading corporate sectors to people abroad, from within the region, extra-region as well. So it says to me that there's a mindset that seems a prevailing mindset that says we're not taking risks, we're not going to keep pushing and doing the best we can. So I would say whether we are dealing with the civil service, our political leaders, our private sector, we've got to inspire them to want to give and do as much as they can for Barbados. We have to inspire them to really want to take this country forward. And it really has to be all hands on deck, because right now we are realizing that the model or the economic model that we've been following for too long is us borrowing money to pay our way. It's not sustainable. We are one of the most indebted countries in the world. We can't afford, or we have to find with utmost urgency a new way forward. So when I say we look at agriculture and we can create spaces in their niche markets, but there are other things that we can do. Barbados is a country, as we know, every Barbadian wants to be home. They want to live here because there is something unique about this little rock that we call Barbados. And it is something that attracts people from other countries as well. And if we were able to address our education as an industry, if we were able to address our medical fields and look at things like medical tourism, there's a way in which we can start to create more opportunities to diversify. We can attract people in, a lot of Barbadians abroad, a lot of investors. The concerns about coming here, they have some concerns about healthcare, if they come with family, education. And once we are able to say again that we understand what the customer wants, what the client wants in terms of quality services, we can assert that we are globally competitive and to create new spaces within the economy.
Let's go back to agriculture for a moment. Barbados is a small country, yet there are large swathes of land, hundreds of acres lying fallow. We see people who've been in agriculture traditionally for many years getting out of it, looking to cut up land and sell. I myself tried my hand with 15 acres up in St. John many years ago, and I had two happy days, the day I bought and the day I sold. Everything in between was just pure torture between the Pradle larceny and other issues and so on. So if agriculture represents a linchpin of the future in terms of food security and opportunity, surely we would have to have a different approach to agriculture than we currently have if it is to be successful, given how many people migrate out of it.
A very different approach. And you mentioned what is one of the biggest inhibitors to people going into agriculture, Pradle larceny. It's not dealt with I think it's with the seriousness that it warrants. And part of that I attribute to historical. We had this notion that people will go, and in the days where, in a sense, the ownership of land was concentrated in a few hands, and people were mainly agricultural laborers, you had this notion that somebody would take a few things to help their family to get through a rough spot. But now people are taking entire crops, and they're doing it not for out of welfare, out of absolute need. They're doing it because they're stealing. And
it's a business.
It's criminal. And it's a business. And so we have to be able to say, not only do we make predial larceny a serious charge and enforce it through the legal system, but all persons associated with it. So it's not just the person who takes the product, but the person who receives it, the person who sells it on, should be all complicit in this. There have been in the past attempts, but we need to systematize it. I've seen it operate abroad where people who are producing crops can have it registered. It means, therefore, that when you go into a market, go anywhere, you can have it tagged, you know what that origin is, so that you're able to track crops through the system. And that, as it's done overseas, is done often for health and safety reasons, so that if there's an outbreak or they realize some product has spoilage or may be infected, you can pull it off the market quickly. We can do a similar kind of tracking system. It will have a cost, it will require change, but the benefit of that will be that the farmer will know invariably they are protected from people just taking what they have invested so much time, money, and energy in.
All right, I want to bring it home to the coming weekend and the election and so on in a moment or two. But I want to ask you, what are the issues, the biggest issues from where you sit that face us as a country right now? What are the burning issues from your perspective?
And I try to look at things through a framework, I would say, what I call the 3 Ps. The first is the issue of peace. And that goes back to issues of crime, violence, murder rate in Barbados. The fact that this is escalating, I think in part it has to do with where, as I say, particularly our young men are. The lack of opportunities for especially low-skilled young men. Also the reality that there is the proliferation of drugs in certain communities, and it's considered to be a quick or fast route to success, or financial reward, can't quite call it success. And that has created, and the absence of, I think, a community system and a community network where you have multi-generational supports, people not having the values, understanding how to control anger and deal with conflict. We've got a serious problem with criminality, with violence, with drugs. And so we've got to address that as a major issue, and we've got to get into the communities. Because as I said before, people know where the drugs and the guns are. They just don't have the confidence in the system, or because of perceived associations between the state and sometimes people on the ground, because that's how votes are mobilized. They don't have the confidence that if I speak, I will be speaking with anonymity and I'll be protected. So we've got to deal with that. Okay. We've got to deal with the issue of progress and social progress. There are big tears in our social fabric, as I said, that lead to this crime and violence in the community. We have got to start to bring our services together. You might not know, in Barbados there are proliferation of agencies, National Assistance Board, Welfare Board, Child Care Board, all of these different departments. And we need to create a single agency, as was done with the Revenue Authority. We need to have a social services agency that deals with a home or household as a unit. It's not about the mother here and the father there and the child there and the grandmother. It is to go into a household and try to understand their need and support them so that they can move up and move on in life. And we have too much duplication, too much inefficiency. We have got to deal with that. So there's the issue of peace, there's the issue of progress, but then I say the third P is prosperity. And that's where the economic growth, the diversification becomes crucial. That yes, if we look at our tourism sector, our leading sector, we are no longer at the cutting edge in the region. If you go online and you search for the top 10 hotels or the top 10 destinations, Barbados does not feature as much as it used to. We need to get investment in our industry, and that will require us to think about doing some things differently. There has been pushback in the past about some of the emerging spaces within tourism. Places like Colorado, which have become now destinations for people who want to go for recreational use of medicinal marijuana. We are now getting into that, but we are not moving as quickly as we can. We've got to look at new spaces within tourism, in our international business and financial services sector. I mean, I don't know why we push back on the OECD and the rest of the world when they were saying there needs to be this global corporate tax rate. We said we're not signing on, but then we've just signed on. We need to be more robust in what is our strategy to bring investment and bring international business to Barbados. We can't be up and down, in and out, because that sends to the world a sense that we are confused or uncertain about where we are. But as I said, in terms of the prosperity, the diversification, the agriculture, we look at healthcare, we look at education as services, not just for our locals, but to bring members of our diaspora back. Because there are a lot of people who would love to come back to Barbados, but we have to create the environment for high net worth persons who, again, we saw the Welcome Stamp program do reasonably well, but we could be a lot more strategic in terms of being able to give people the opportunity for tax residency here, to come here and make Barbados somewhere where they can reside and do business and benefit financially from that. But it is just a matter of us doing the heavy lifting now, focusing on those things to get them forward. So as I said, peace, progress, prosperity, my 3 Ps, that is my vision for how I think we need to structure a way forward for Barbados.
All right, yeah. Some rapid fire questions for you, and then I want to bring it home to you versus Verla de Pisa. Republic, where do you stand on the Republic?
I support becoming a republic, but this is not the right time, and we're not doing it in the right way.
You know that was said about independence in 1966. The BLP they were for it, but not at this time. It was they ended up on the losing side in the sense of independence and going alone. We wanted to go within a federation. You're saying republic. If not now, when?
I would say as soon as COVID settles down, okay. As soon as we have the opportunity, because this requires national discussion.
Okay, referendum, yes or no on republic?
Not necessarily. Okay. No, it's not part of our constitutional requirement, but extensive consultation with the people is crucial.
Okay. Where do you stand on the legalization and growing of medicinal marijuana?
I support it. I think there's a lot of opportunity for both our health industries, but also, as I said, how the interlinkages with tourism, it can be most beneficial.
Decriminalizing of marijuana charges and so on for small amounts of usage?
Yes, I would say that. I mean, we recognize socially and practically it has no greater effect than the consumption of alcohol. We just have to regulate it, educate people, and make sure it's done in a safe way.
Same-sex marriage?
People have the right to choose. I am very inclusive in my approach. We have to recognize that Barbados is a traditional society, so that what we have to be able to do is to provide people with the comfort and assurance that they are welcome to make the choices that they want. Whether we are, and again, the process of turning that into legislation, we have to go with and be able to again understand and educate Barbadians to get them on board. But the truth is, as has been said in the past, there has been little or no victimization. And I believe that Barbados by default is an inclusive society, but we just have to create the spaces and give people the assurance that there's no discrimination.
Mandatory vaccines.
I don't support it at all. I believe in vaccination. I am vaccinated, but I believe in persuasion, not intimidation. You can't demand people, and the law at this time does not provide for it. I feel people should vaccinate it. I feel that we can sell the message to them if we do it in a structured way, but I don't like the amount.
What do you say to a person who sees the ads about coming to Barbados, gets fully vaccinated, they take a COVID test before they arrive, they take one on arrival, and they get to a hotel and they say, well, you know, I want to be served by people who are vaccinated. I don't feel comfortable being served by someone who is not vaccinated. How do we deal with that?
In a sense, again, we have to explain to them that we can't force people into vaccination. What we have to do is say to them, we are going to protect the clients by saying those people who are not vaccinated will get tests to make sure that they're unwell, that they are well. But again, we have to also appreciate, which is part of, I think, where this debate gets lost, that even if you are vaccinated, you can contract COVID and you can transmit it. So vaccination versus non-vaccination is not the issue. It is how do we continue to maintain those practices of mask wearing, regular hand washing, social distancing as much as we can, so that prevents the transmission more than anything else.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's bring it now to your challenge for the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party, and I'm going to reach over here. I notice you've got a big campaign going because you've got your campaign hats too as well. New Dawn for Democracy, going with Guy. Yes. Yeah. So that's your slogan, going with Guy.
That is what my team came up with. Yes.
Going with Guy.
I'm a little more modest, but this is, I guess, me learning and understanding political arena.
All right. Yeah. So Guy, going with Guy. Now, some would say that Verla de Pisa came to the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party at an extremely difficult time. The party had been decimated politically. You lost fortress seats like St. Lucie and St. John. I sat there the night. I mean, I felt that the polls were right and that the government was going to lose and lose big. But I did not see certain seats. I figured the government would at least have held maybe 4 seats. And when the numbers started to come in for St. John, I said, no way, that's impossible. You know, so, I mean, she came to the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party at a very, very difficult time. And I'm not sure how many people would want to take on that role. 3 years on, she has done a lot of work, some would argue. And the perception may be that now you are coming in at what may be seen as an opportunistic time. How would you respond to that? Why should the Democratic Labour Party choose you over her?
First, as I said before, when I started my campaign, one of the first things I did was to congratulate the comrade President Verla for what she has done by taking on the leadership of the party at a difficult time. But what we have seen, and if we look at the St. George North by-election, we made some headway, but nowhere near enough to suggest that we were election ready then. And this is part of the challenge. I say to people, the Democratic Labour Party is a political organization. It is not a social club. Its mandate is to win seats and form governments. And when I came home after 15 months, due to the hiatus because of COVID, and I listened to people on the ground, there was that sense that yes, she's done the best she can, but we are still far off the mark. That we have not given voice to the nation. We are not organized on the ground. Our branches are not strong. The leadership on the ground is not as robust as should be. We have not articulated and communicated a clear vision to the people of Barbados what this party is post-2018. We don't have the resources mobilized to fight in. First it was the by-election in St. George, but to really mount a national campaign. And when I listen to people, the challenge is that they did not feel that the current president could deliver these goods. I met with her and I said to her, and there's no animosity, I said to her, I want her to succeed. But I did not think, having lost 2 elections before, trying to take on a new constituency, and run a party was something that was viable at this point in time. And I was not listening to myself, I was listening to people in the party and in the nation saying, we've got to do this differently. And that was the perspective I brought to it. That what the party needs is somebody who can focus on mobilizing the central unit and getting it from the center ready to roll out across all the constituencies in Barbados.
Prime Minister Motley made reference to the leader of the LP in terms of cricketing terms as a night watchman. So in a sense, are you not agreeing with that assessment?
I am really saying she came in and she did the best she could in a difficult time. The situation,
which is what night watchmen do, by the way.
Which is why I don't necessarily want to stick to that terminology. But one thing is, the time is now that we have to do things differently. Yes.
If she wins, would you work with her? If you win, will she work with you?
I want to believe that regardless of the outcome, both of us will remain, and I can say this for myself, will remain committed to Democratic Labour Party, and I will continue to do the best that I can for the institution. I have given as much as I have been able to the organization and to democracy in Barbados, and that won't change whether I'm president or not. I've never been president before, and my commitment to country and to party has been without question.
So, Guy, if you were not successful, are you going to remain in Barbados? Are you heading back to Florida? What is the likelihood that if you didn't make it, that you would still be here?
I have to look practically at work and my commitments, my financial commitments, my work commitments. And whenever I can, and I would always say this, my default desire is always to be home. Sometimes circumstances don't allow me to be here, but wherever I am, my heart always remains in Barbados. So if I can be here, I will be here, but if I can't for practical reasons, I will always have Barbados on my mind and continue to do the best for it.
So this is the start of a journey. This is not a sprint necessarily for you.
No, I mean, I had not anticipated or expected myself to get directly involved in representational politics. But I guess as we journey through life, we grow and we encounter new opportunities, new challenges, and I guess what often happens is it depends on our willingness to rise to the challenge. And for me, this is just a new vista for me to look across. I don't know where the journey is going to take me, but I am here for Barbados, for the DLP, for the long term.
Well, you're a man of the cloth and a man of your words, so I want to thank you for being here with us today on the Red Couch. You've certainly presented and given me very clear positions on all of the questions I've asked. I can only wish you and your competitor the best, since it is not the role of media to take a position one way or the other, but it is healthy for democracy. I do agree with you.
I do.
And I do agree that over the last 3 months we've seen more activities centered around the Democratic Labour Party, more a disposition to promulgate and put out policies and so on. in a very kind of robust kind of way. So you sense that even though not represented in Parliament, that there is a robust democracy between the two leading parties on the political landscape in Barbados.
As a wonderful Calypsonian once sang, something's happening and it's exciting.
All right. Guy Hewitt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best to you.
All the best, brother. Thanks.
That's Reverend Guy Hewitt, and he will be challenging for the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. I'm Vic Fernandes, and this has been a rather exhilarating and entertaining, for me, Red Couch interview.